at explaining it. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the beginning again because I had some problems with my recording. Okay, so again, today's scope is going to be about how we can follow up on the language component to improve it so that we're not losing too many marks in that section. Okay, so again, most of the time for content, we're quite okay. I think we've gotten to the stage where we can identify our 6 content points quite effectively. And once you do that, you tend to be in the 5 to 6 range already, if you haven't missed any points, okay? Now, the important thing, however, is that you must show the link between the 6 content points and your understanding of purpose, audience, and context. And that's my aim for today's presentation, okay? To show you how I link it and what I do in the middle of an exam in order to help myself not miss anything, especially in the area of language, okay? So language, as you can see, is worth 50% more marks than the content. It's 9 marks, okay? Because it also includes organization, which means you must sequence your ideas and arrange them in a logical way such that the information comes across clearly to your audience, okay? So the keywords here is clear. And it's not just clear, but very clear. I'm sure you can see here. It's very clear, which means that the way you arrange your facts must be so clear that the audience, in this case, the customer service manager, will be able to understand exactly what you're trying to say and what he needs to do when he responds to your email, okay? So we talked about this, purpose, audience, and context. Now, I noticed when I look through many of your question papers that you do not mark out your purpose, audience, and context. That's a big no-no. Huh? I'll show you in a moment how I mark up my question paper, and I expect you to do the same for the exam. If you understand what I'm saying, please give me a thumbs up. Okay, good. So please remember, there's nothing worse than a blank piece of question paper because that shows me that you have not engaged in the text. So do try to annotate it in a way I'm about to show you. And the 3 main things you need to identify are purpose, audience, and context. Okay, purpose, audience, and context. Okay, right. So now I'll go through the 5 steps that we need to always apply when we're doing situational writing. When we're given the question paper, always read the stimulus. The stimulus is the line of text that's above the picture, as well as the line of text that's in the question. Okay, so I say again, the stimulus refers to the line of text that's above the picture, and it's also the line of text that's above the question. I'll point out to you later where's the stimulus, okay? Then after you read the stimulus, read the information in the task box. Now, the task box is basically your 6 different requirements, right? The 6 content points that you need to generate from the picture. And you need to label your purpose, audience, and context from the question, right? The question will give you information about who, why, and what you're supposed to write. Who, why, and what. Purpose, audience, context, okay? And finally, when you read the task, you need to identify the 6 content points. There are 6 key information pieces that you need to identify, and you need to rephrase them in a coherent way in your email response, right? So that's step 3. Step 4 is the actual writing out of the email itself. And this is basically the format, right? So generally speaking, this is what I want to see. And finally, in step 5, what we'll do is we'll read through our finished response in order to check, right? All 6 points are there. I have written it in the correct tone, formal or informal, based on the audience that I have determined. If it's to a customer service manager, it'll be formal. If it's to my friend, it'll be informal, and so on and so forth. Language is accurate. Ideas and facts are well linked. And information in the email, remember I told you to read it out aloud to yourself and listen to yourself. The information that you read out to yourself must be clear. In other words, when I listen to myself, I must understand what I've written. And if I don't, I need to fix the parts that are unclear or fix the parts that interfere with the clear communication of my meaning, okay? Just a few points here. When you're writing a formal email, please do not use contractions. Do you know what are contractions, everybody? Right, yeah. So it's the apostrophe S's, right? Okay, so he is, he's, right? There, right? The apostrophe RE, right? Don't use contracted words. Always use in the full form. They are, not there. He is, not he's, right? So no contractions allowed and no dialogue. So when you're writing a formal email, there should be no dialogue in your text whatsoever. In fact, I will go as far as to say, do not use the exclamation mark. Okay? Do not use the exclamation mark. All pieces of information in a formal email should be matter of fact. They should not be sensationalized by using exclamation marks. Okay? Right? So that's step 5. Now let's go into the formal email format problem. I'm just going to leave this on the screen for a while because the next section will be the actual answer itself. Okay? So just take a look at it. Okay? So notice that the salutation is always the last name of the person. So you all always ask me, right, Mr. Pang, what happens if the person has a title, like he's the principal, or if he's the manager, or if he's the, the teacher in charge. Okay. Now we do not write titles in the salutation. Here, we cannot write dear teacher in charge or dear principal, Mr. Tan. No, cannot. This is just the last name. Mr. Tan, Mr. Lim, Mrs. Lim, Mrs. Ong, right? Mrs. Chandran. This is the last name only. Where will I put the title of the person? All the way at the bottom here. Okay? The call to action, right? As the principal of Simin Primary School, I hope that you will. As the manager of 4S bus service, I hope that you will. As the teacher in charge of our class, I hope that you will. So this is where you insert the identity of the person or the title of the person. You do not do it here in the top at the salutation. Is everybody clear? If you are clear, please nod your head so I can see. Awesome. Okay. So remember, you do not put the title at salutation. You put the title at the call to action, which is the end purpose, right? As the principal of Simin Primary School, I hope that you will look into punishing these boys for their errant behavior, that kind of thing. Okay. As the manager of this restaurant, I hope that you will commend your chef for the excellent meal that he cooked yesterday, right? So I hope that you will always gets preceded or followed by the title of the person that you're writing to. Why? Because who the person is will determine what he can do for you, right? As the manager, he can help you. As the teacher, she can help you. As the principal, she can do something about it. So the title follows the call to action. Okay? So date, salutation, opening paragraph must always have a polite phrase. Never forget to introduce yourself in a formal email. Is that clear, everybody? Right? Always begin with allow me to introduce myself. It's a full stop here, not a comma. Do not write comma, right? I am, and then you write your name, from. And remember, where you are from depends on who you are writing to. Do you understand? I say again, where you are from depends on who you are writing to. So if I'm writing to the principal, then I am a student from her school. If I'm writing to a manager, then I am a patron or a customer in his restaurant. If I'm writing to the customer service officer in a bus service, then I'm a commuter on the bus or on the train. Is everybody clear? Your identity must be linked to who you are writing to. You cannot just memorize I'm a student from Simin Primary School and use it every time. It will not work unless you are writing to a teacher or a principal in a school setting. Do you all understand? Do you have any questions about this? If you do, please raise your hands. Good. If not, then you've been following, you should understand. And context. What does context mean? Context means that you must give the background information that supports the purpose for why you are writing. I will give you an example later, okay? The middle paragraph is the 6 content points, okay? You need to include the stem of each question. So again, I will tell you what I mean by stem of each question. So you don't use your own words. You try to use the words of the question to answer it, right? And finally, in the concluding paragraph, you should have a end purpose or concluding call to action. So I hope that you will. So as the principal of Simin Primary School, I hope that you will present these good deeds that Adam has done before the school during assembly, right? That's an example. Okay. And then the polite concluding phrase is always thank you for your kind attention to my email. Okay. That one you can memorize. That will be a standard phrase. All right. So signing off, if you are not sure, use yours sincerely. Yours sincerely. And please memorize the spelling. There are still a few of you, a handful of you, who spell sincerely incorrectly. There are 2 E's in sincerely. 2, not 1, but 2. Okay? So please be careful with your spelling of sincerely. All right. Now let me show you how does Mr. Pang mark up an actual question paper. This is what it looks like, okay? So you start here, right? With the task, you start by identifying who is the person you are so that you can sign off using the person's name. Then you work on the context, is email. What kind of email? Is formal. Why? Because I'm writing to the customer service manager. I highlight that as the audience. And then I highlight the purpose, commend the bus captain. So this is my purpose, but my purpose will only happen at the last paragraph. Why? Because before I commend the bus captain, I must first tell the manager what he did. Am I right? So that will be at the beginning. And this purpose will be at the end. Okay? Then I will mark out my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 content points here. And I will mirror the 6 content points here when I start to annotate my picture. So number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. Notice not in order. So I need to arrange it later when I write my story. Okay, and then notice there's another purpose here. This purpose, right, is to be added to my call to action at the end. Okay, so when I say, I hope that you will commend the bus captain for going the extra mile, I can use the words extra mile from here. So remember, I don't invent new words. I use the words that are given to me in the picture and the passage so that I can be safe. So notice, when I see your question paper, this is what I should see. That it has been worked over systematically, that you have identified purpose, audience, and context, that the tone of the email is formal, that I've identified the 6 content points systematically and mirrored them here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I've captured any additional information that can be added to my context. Like in this case, going the extra mile, okay? That's an additional contextual information that can make my response even better and more polished, okay? So now I go into the actual model, okay? So this is what my model 15 upon 15 email to the manager looks like. Okay, just take a moment to look at it. And all the words in red are the components that I had highlighted earlier and have now transferred into my email. Okay, so take a look at it. And please ask me if you have any questions about why I included anything, or if anything doesn't match what I've just said. Can you please spot it and tell me now if you see anything? Okay. Now, notice I use the word yesterday. Why? How can I use the word yesterday? Because of my date, 30th July, right? Can you see here? 30th July means that the date, 29th July, is yesterday. Okay, so I can use the word yesterday because I've written the correct date on top. If I don't write my date, if I forget my date, I can't use adverbials like yesterday, today, or the next day. Okay, so it is easier when you put a date because the date allows you then to reference it in the body of your email. Okay. Yes, Solomon, do you have a question?
Is it compulsory to put
I can't
date?
hear you. Please unmute yourself.
Is it compulsory to use date when
Oh,
it's
sorry. I can't hear you because I'm on the road. Hold on now. Give me a minute now. Give me 1 minute. I can't hear you. Hello? Hello? Solomon, can you say something?
Is it compulsory to use date on a formal
Okay,
email?
wait. Sorry, wait. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Not working very well. Okay, Solomon, can you repeat your question again, please?
Is it compulsory to use date in a formal email?
Okay. Date is not compulsory, right? Actually, for both formal and informal email, date is not compulsory. I include a date because it's easier for me to reference it. Like I said, I can use words like yesterday. I can use words like today. It's easier to talk about it rather than having to mention the date every time. So that's why I would advocate using a date. But if you exclude it and you're able to describe the date in the body of the text, that's fine. No marks will be deducted for it. Okay? Yeah. Yes, Shani, go ahead.
Um, do we have to like put yesterday as like the previous day? Because like when
Oh,
we
I
read,
see. Yeah, I get what you mean. No, you don't. This is not synthesis and it's not reported speech. Okay? You're simply writing what happened into an email. You're not like converting from direct to indirect. speech in that sense. So you don't need to convert the adverbials of time or the tenses, right? So it just happened yesterday. So you just say yesterday because you're telling someone. Imagine your email is like talking to someone. When you talk to someone, you don't say the previous day, right? You just tell them yesterday this happened to me. Okay? It's only when someone else is reporting on your speech that they will convert the yesterday to the previous day. Xuan Yi said that he saw Mr. Pang at the mall the previous day. That's because someone's reporting on what Xuan Yi said. But if Xuan Yi is talking directly, then Xuan Yi will just say, yesterday I saw Mr. Pang at the shopping mall. Okay? Thank you for that question. I think that was a good question. Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, just take a few more minutes to internalize this structure, understand how it works. Okay, notice how I arrange my points. They are all in the middle paragraph, right? None of the points are overflowing to the first or third paragraph. So that's the good practice. Huh? You keep the main content in the second paragraph, and then you use your second paragraph to check all 6 points. Okay? Then your third paragraph, right, is very standard. It's always, right, purpose, call to action, right? As the customer service manager, I hope that you will consider, and please be very polite because you are a student, right? You have no power to command the adult to do what you want him to do. So you cannot say, as the customer service manager, command Mr. James Ong. You cannot command him to do that. So you can only politely ask, I hope that you will consider. So it's up to you to consider, right? You decide whether you want to command Mr. James Ong because you are the manager. So you are politely asking him to do this, not commanding him to do it. That will be the wrong tone. Do you all understand? Because the tone is very important. When you're writing a formal email, it must be very polite and it must be correctly toned, correctly pitched, okay? Finally, of course, you will end with a polite phrase. Thank you for your kind attention, right? So that's standard. And then remember, when you sign off a formal email, it should be with your full name, right? Not just your first name, but your full name. Please be very careful of that, okay? Right? A lot of people forget at the last part, they just write down the first name. First name is for informal email only. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else I want to point out to you. Remember what I said in the class? You are not allowed to use would whenever you want to denote something that's in the future. So if I'm talking about something that's going to happen in the future, I will. Okay? The only time you use would is when you are being polite to someone. I would like to request. Okay? That is when you can use would. But usually when you're denoting a future event, you will use will. Do not abuse the use of would. Many of you just use would as a default. Don't do that. Okay? It's incorrect grammatically. All right? Any other questions? Okay. If not, then I'll just very quickly spin you through the formal. I'm not going to go into as much detail as the into the informal. I won't go into as much detail because I think that the formal is more current, more important, right? So no questions, okay. Again, don't worry. I will record and post the link to this video, and I will send a copy of my slides in order for you to be able to follow. Okay, so very important that you understand it. Okay, and that you clarify any doubts that you have about this structure to me immediately, right? Because that's what this session is for. If you have no doubts, no queries, if you're all confident that this is how a formal email works, then refer back to this, right? This will be your textbook, so to speak, if you're not sure, you can't remember what to include in a formal email. Okay, so this is informal, right? And of course, you can see that it's drastically simpler, right? An informal email has a much less rigorous or difficult structure. It's much easier to remember. But let me say this, it's actually easier to score with a formal email. Precisely because if you get all the structures correct, you can't fall far off the mark. Whereas because there's not much structure for an informal email, right? The moment you make a mistake, you can deviate quite far off. Okay, so I would say it is harder to score for an informal email, and you tend to make more mistakes because it's more casual in tone, right? And it's not as structured in a way that you respond to it. So informal emails, date, salutation, first name only, right? Dear Jim, dear Tom, dear father, dear James, right? All these are proper salutations for an informal email. If you use a full name, then it will be too formal. Anyway, neither formal nor informal use full names, right? The informal uses first name, the formal uses last name. Okay? Yeah. So opening paragraph is a polite phrase. How are you? Please, this is what a lot of you do. Please don't answer your own question. Don't talk to yourself. You know what I mean, right? You know what I mean by talking to yourself. A lot of you wrote, how are you doing? I am fine. Can you please not do that? It's really weird. Do you get what I mean? When you write, how are you doing? Don't answer the question by the next line going, I am fine. It sounds like you're talking to yourself. Don't do that. Just leave it as how are you doing? Or how are you? Question mark. That's it. Then the other person will reply to your email to tell you how they are. Don't reply on their behalf or tell them how you are doing because they didn't ask. Okay? So how are you? And then your purpose, I would like to. Most of the time, the first paragraph is telling them something, right? I would like to tell you, or maybe you're inviting them for something. I would like to invite you. So I would like to is an informal structure. Please do not use I would like to for formal. Is that clear? Again, to test you, what is the structure for formal? I just covered it previous slide. What is the purpose statement structure for formal? Anyone? Raise your hands if you can remember. Yes, Clarissa?
I would like to inform you.
Nope. I would like to is an informal structure. I just said that. I want you to remember, oh dear, did I make a mistake? Let me check. No, I didn't. Very good. I thought I made a mistake. Phew. So no, it's not I would like to. What is the formal structure? Yes, Claire.
I am writing to.
Yes, I am writing to. Right? Whenever you're writing a formal email, I am writing to. Whenever you're writing an informal email, I would like. So just remember, okay? If it's personal, right, it's like. Like you like something, it's personal feeling, right? But if it's informal, if it's formal, right? If it's really very formal and very like the tone is very like strict, right? Then you cannot like what? It has to be I am writing to. Can you commit this to memory, everybody? Can? Right? So from now on, anytime you're writing a formal email, I am writing to. Anytime you're writing an informal email, I would like to. Can? Okay? Do you all understand? It's just a simple point about remembering, okay? So I would like to, and then any additional contextual information you can add after that. Middle paragraph is again same as formal, 6 content points. Concluding paragraph, same as formal. Call to action, I hope that you is the same. There's no change in the stem. I hope that you. But down here, right, there is no identity. So you don't need to write, as my father, I hope that you can bring me to the shopping mall. You understand how silly that sounds, right? Okay, you don't need to write as the principle of, you don't have to do that. As my friend, I hope that you will attend my party. Cannot. Okay, so there's no identity attached to the call to action here. You don't need to talk about who is that person. Okay, just say, I hope that you can attend my party. I hope that you can remind me what to bring tomorrow. I hope that you can, right? So it's very informal. And then the polite concluding phrase will usually be, I hope to see you soon. A lot of you like to hope to see you soon. Please don't do that. Don't omit the subject. I hope to see you soon. Don't omit the I. The subject is important in a sentence. When you contract it to hope to see you soon, it's too casual, right? It's too casual, right? Do not do that. I hope to see you soon. Or I hope to see you in Singapore, right? If you're writing to your cousin Jim, for example, like the previous one that we did, okay? And this, again, is another example, what we just did, of how I would annotate the text. For those of you who are late to this meeting, just look at how Mr. Pang annotates, right? I always start on the right and I work my way to the left, okay? From the right to the left, begin with purpose, audience, context, then highlight your identity so that you know who to sign off as, and then link the audience to the context and determine the tone of the email. In this case, because I'm writing to my cousin, I'm writing an informal email, okay? Then identify my 6 content points, mirror them over here in the picture, and then look for additional contextual information that is important to my email. So down here on the top, this is where the context is, right? The picture below shows 3 family members discussing plans for their relative Paul, who will be visiting Singapore. That's important. I need to include this. And then over here, another contextual information that's not part of the 6 content points. Paul is from Malaysia and he is visiting Singapore over a weekend in December. So I need to include all of this because this is important in my first paragraph especially, and I'll show it to you, okay? See? Dear Paul, how are you in Malaysia? So I use the contextual information. I would like to tell you about the exciting weekend my family and I have planned for you when you visit us in Singapore next week. Why do I say next week? Because the date is November. Can you see 30th November here? So that means in December, right? So remember in the contextual information, we read that Paul is visiting us in December, a weekend in December. So when I email, right, I write down here, I have planned for you when you visit us in Singapore next week. And why is it next week? Again, the date gives me the ability to say next week. If I don't say next week, if I don't put the date, I cannot say next week, correct? The date, 30th November, next week is when? December, lo? Because 30th November is the last day of November, right? So next week will be December. Can you all see everybody? Every part of the email plays a part. Nothing is ever wasted. And you must learn how to link every part in your response so that your responses are thoughtful. You're not just writing things for the sake of writing things. Everybody clear? And this will be when you go out to work next time, you're writing a lot of emails, right? It's the same skill. This will be exactly the format you will use. And how well you do it, how clearly you communicate will determine how effective you are in your business or your work. Do you understand? It's a life skill. Okay, so it's not just about fulfilling the exams, it's about learning a life skill, okay? Communicating effectively so that people who receive your email will know what to do. They won't be, confused by what you are trying to say. So follow a clear, systematic organization. Link your points together. Can you see firstly, then finally? Can you see that? Right? These are points that sequence your answers in a very systematic way. So you're not just haphazard all over the place. Arrange your points in a logical way. Then people can follow. They will be able to do what you ask them to do in the email. Okay, that's the ultimate point. It must be actionable. When you write to someone, they must know what to do. Otherwise, you'll fail in your most basic level of communication, right? So be very clear in how you communicate and check that your points are arranged in a logical manner. Then I hope you're excited to about the weekend that we have planned for you. This one not so much call for action, but it's more like, your hope is that he will like the plan that you came up with, okay? Which is logical because your earlier purpose statement is to tell him about what you plan. So logically, at the end, you hope that he likes what you've planned, right? Can you see the logical flow, right? And then finally, I look forward to seeing you in Singapore really, really soon, okay? So that's like your end polite phrase. Okay, and then don't forget, first name, Jim. You can use warm regards. You can use best regards. You can use your cousin, right? You can use yours sincerely even, right? If you are not sure what to write, just write yours sincerely. You can't go wrong with that, okay? But generally speaking, in this case, since I know he's my cousin, I can write your cousin, okay? Right? Any questions? We're on the dot, 3:30. I promised half an hour and I delivered, okay? Yes, Nicholas, what's your question?
Talking about sign-offs, can we write best regards for formal email?
Don't do that. Okay, no, cannot. Because you send your regards to somebody who is very close to you, but you don't send your regards to someone that you don't know. Okay, someone you don't know, you're expressing your sincerity in what you're writing. So yours sincerely. Okay, actually, to be very, very strict, yours faithfully, right? You all know yours faithfully, right? Is usually used when you don't know who is the person. So, dear sir, madam, remember we wrote that one on dear sir, madam, right? When you write dear sir, madam, by right, you should use the sign off yours faithfully, because yours faithfully is designed for people you don't know. You don't even know their name. So you just write your dear sir, madam, right? Because you don't know their name, you only know their title. Okay? But to simplify matters, I've not asked you to do that. So just use yours sincerely for all formal communications. Okay? So I emphasize again, this is the format you need to be very familiar with, the formal one. Okay? You need to be very familiar with. This is what we're doing right now. This is, this is very important. So please feast your eyes on it for a minute more. I will send this to you, and I've already printed out a copy. I know many of you are asking me to print out. Even though I feel badly for the trees, I understand that you need something physical to look at. So I've already printed it out for you, okay? Everything will be given out to you on Monday. You'll file it in to your compo files, and then you can bring it back for revision, okay? But for now, the digital copy will be sent to you as well, so you can refer to it, okay? I will set 2 additional practices for you over the weekend. I'll tell you when I release it for situational writing and for compositions as well. So work on it. On Monday, I should be able to give you feedback on your compose. Okay? Then we'll switch into compositions next week as the main focus, and we'll do practices in paper 2 simultaneously as well. Okay, Ken? So I thank you all for your hard work. Thank you for all making it. I know some of you weren't able to make it in time, but thank you for coming on anyway and trying to make a portion of the lesson. I appreciate it, and I will send you, like I said, the soft copy of the slides, which will include the models and the annotations of the question papers, as well as the link to the video slightly later on when I've finished encoding the video. Okay? Any other questions you want to ask? Generally, any other questions? Anything else about what happened? If not, then that's all for today. I'm going to end the recording, and feel free to exit. Okay? Thanks for paying attention, everybody.